every pony and every creature. Welcome to tonight's podcast at DAG. As always, this is your host, Dratta Arcana, and welcome to Dratta Talks. And joining me tonight is very special guest.
So I am Minty Root. I am a Canadian fan animator. You might have seen my work back in the days in Project Thundercloud with Good Morning Baltimore, Big Mac Horseman, Luna's Determination, The Fall of Sunset Shimmer, and probably in the future with The Beginning of Harmony. Uh, I just enjoy doing some fan animation work that just feels more like movies because I like television, but I feel that fan animation should be an experience, not just a video.
And very true. And you haven't just done fan animation, you did animation for Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, as well as Aquaman, I believe.
Not exactly. I was not animator on that. I was working in the environments. One of the things for Aquaman, most of it was just digital environments. We did have to match just some layouts of actors because we had some shots where we had actors just running in some scenes and we had to fill in with the fully digital environments. With Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, one of the things is that we had to match existing sets because they decided to shoot with real sets to make it feel more believable. And since they were very organic, they had lots of life in them, so they decided to go with them and just extend them digitally. So in my case, with Maleficent, one of the things I had to do was to try to match the style, but also give some sense of scale, and to try to make it feel like the art that we were given, which was quite a challenge. But at the end, with the result we had, I think it was worth it.
Yeah, and I bet that was a privilege many fan animators, would love to get to, but don't always get the opportunity to work on those Hollywood type productions. So that I think that that's really cool that you've worked with some mainstream productions as well as fan animation. I know that you've done a lot of collaborations with both Little Shy, FIM, and Tootsie Forever, and several other YouTubers. And Luna's one of my favorite animations is definitely Luna's Determination. Fall of Sunset Shimmer is another really good one, and so you've been doing animation for quite some time, both in the fandom and professionally and stuff. Kind of walk us through how that kind of all started for you.
Oh my gosh. So basically, back in my childhood, one of the things I really wanted to do was to make my own cartoons because the cartoons on TV, I don't know, there was a lot of good ones, but really, there was a lot of cartoons that just felt like they were just almost good, but felt like there was something missing. So I just wanted to make my own cartoons, and I realized really quick that I didn't have the skill set, but I still wanted to do that. Um, I found out when I was playing around with PowerPoint that you could put some slides that would just last like just a tenth of a second. So I just realized really quick, well, it's a tenth of a second. So why don't I try to make my own animation or try to move things around? One of the first thing I ever did was just a very short movie of a guy who just entered into a race with his car and he won. There was not really much drama. I just found out, and then I showed my dad, and he was proud. But then again, it was what, 8? And then I tried to make other things as well when I was uh, getting older. And back then, I still had floppy drives and even had a CD burner on my computer. So I'd have them on the floppy disk and disks that I would just show on computers at school. And I found out quickly that I could have a PowerPoint viewer, so I could actually have something that I could bring with me all the time to show on computers. And eventually I just realized, well, that's good and all, but I should try Flash. And turns out my father was studying, well, he was a teacher in computer science. and he was giving a class in web and web development, and he had a disc on Flash. Well, basically a book with a disc. Like the book was like 3 inches thick, just all the things you could do in Flash. And Flash was meant back then just as a web development tool, which some people found a use to basically create their own animations with that. And it was robust enough to make cartoons. So I just decided at some point, well, let's try to make my own. And there was Newgrounds, which was getting there at the time. I found some people doing fan animations in Flash as well. And some people were really creative. Back in the days, there was a guy who did his own crossover between Sonic and Mario, which was really action-packed. And during that, basically with that crossover, it kind of made me realize, well, it's almost better than a cartoon. Like, it's sprite art that he took from video games, but it felt tense. It felt like I was watching something that was meant to be seen. And, you know, and back in the days, obviously it was just an animation done by a guy on his computer. So there was not a lot of it, but I just wanted to make my own as well. And back then I was not really good at it, but I found an interest discovering new tricks. One of the things I discovered really quick was that I also had 3D animation software that I could learn. There was Wings 3D, which was a very, very simple 3D software that could just do UV textures, just very, very basic modeling. And I realized really quick, well, let's put a character in a scene, just rotate the camera. And all I did was to rotate the camera manually and just screen record it. And just add some characters on top of it and made some really cool 3D-like effects. Kind of like they did that in some cartoons where they would have some moments where the camera would rotate around the character. And I felt it was pretty cool. It was not really anything really special, but it encouraged me to try to do more. Back there was Secondary 5, which is the kind of like our last year of high school in Canada. We had a class where we had to create a project. It could be anything. It could be, I don't know, making furniture, making a book, making a scrapbook out of photos. Some people made some projects. It was kind of funny. There were some people who were working from the very beginning of the class to try to do something interesting. Some people had no idea, and they did something like 2 weeks before the end. And I was already interested in doing my own animated film since the very beginning. And I decided to make my own. And there was another student. He made a film as well, but it was shot with a camera. It was a comedy. He filmed with a bunch of friends, and he had a friend with a car as well. It was really fun, but it was not meant to be taken too seriously. And in my case, I was going very seriously about what I wanted to do because I really wanted to become an animator. So I worked like every night on trying to make it, and eventually I lost the original file, so I had to try to cobble together what I had. It was kind of a disaster at the end of the project, but I had something that had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Really a mess. It was kind of weird, sorts of coming of age story that had some kind of environmental message, but also was kind of edgy, but not too much. And there was lots of snow. And the main character looked like me because I didn't know how to draw very well. And people liked it and made me want to do animation, but I kind of gave up. Went to college, decided to go in science because I was not too sure about animation. And eventually I met someone the second year of college. He was doing some 3D modeling and he introduced me to Blender, and all because my English teacher just got curious when I was showing what the stuff I was doing in Flash back then. And she introduced me to the other guy who told me how to do keyframes with Blender and told me a very easy way to make animated scenes. And it encouraged me. I just realized I could render scenes that were much more complex because that way I could actually animate the camera moving around the characters and moving around the scenes. And it encouraged me to continue making Flash projects like I did before. And I did some crazy scenes. There was basically in the story there was all the characters going to a tower that was distant to a village, and basically from the village, one of the supporting characters was shooting some kind of magnetic gun at the tower. And basically, one of the characters ran to the city to tell the girl, "Yeah, use the magnetic gun against that tower. Trust us." So you had a shot going from the main characters at the tower, trying to fight one of the characters, going through, basically going to the city, to that sporting character shooting. Then, as the gun was shot, it would just fall on the ground because of all the all the impact of the shot. And it was like 30 seconds. But for me at the time, it was a really impressive wonder because I never thought I'd be able to do that. It encouraged me to do more until what happened around 2012. I was still doing some Flash animation on the side, but I discovered the show and I realized, well, while reading about it, it's animated in Flash. It's the same software I use, but so much better. But I was thinking, well, it's so much better, but there's no, they don't have that thing with when they have 3D, crazy 3D camera movements. They kind of did once in a while, but I was thinking, what if I try to do my own? And it encouraged me to try to make my own project, where I did Project Thundercloud, which was not very complex, or like 4 minutes of animation, just very, very simple shots of characters talking. There was one where you had the camera rotating, but I just swapped some poses I already had, and it was based on rigs I didn't do myself. So there was a lot of things to learn, but I realized I had so much fun, and I felt like I did something that felt like a story. So I just asked my parents, like, I know you wanted me to study engineering, but can I go study animation? And eventually they decided to let me go study animation. So I went to a 3D animation school in Montreal. I had to actually move out of the city. I had to learn a bit how to live on my own, which was quite tricky at the time because, I lived at my parents' home since I was born. So it was quite a lot to tackle. I had to learn a lot of software. I was never introduced to Maya, and at first was scary, but nowadays
Now,
super easy.
sorry to interrupt you there, but Maya is the program that I'm probably more familiar with because I've worked with a former animator friend of mine was using Maya for something that I was working on a while back. But go ahead and continue story. I just figured I'd point that out.
Yeah, Maya is basically one of the leading leading 3D software. It does a lot. It does animation. It does particle effects. It does simulations. You can actually use it to program games, although you need a separate engine. You can animate characters. You can build environments. You can render them. It's really, really powerful. But it's also kind of a mess because it's software that started in the 90s. I think the first version was in 1998. It was still running on, it was one of the first versions on Windows. And it's kind of funny because I saw recently a video about basically a video showing the first version. I was looking at the interface, and besides the color and the look of some icons, it's the same.
So
So
so between
yeah, basically
Flash
what
and sorry, between Flash and Maya, which two programs do you prefer?
I'm gonna go with Maya because of how stronger it is. Obviously, Maya is very unstable, but Flash is also unstable, but it does less. So Flash is much more simple as a software to learn. You don't have to worry about third-party plugins. You don't have to worry about crazy procedural effects. For example, one of the cities that I was working on has some trees. I had to do a scatter for those trees on the surface, and I had to set up the parameters it was a lot of numbers to type. There was a lot of things optimizing, for example, looking and making sure that the entire asset would actually fit on my RAM, because Flash is Maya's really hungry on resources. Also checking out if the render could actually work, because if you want to render with actual lighting, those renders can take hours to do. If you want any good quality, obviously you can also have some low quality renders to just have a good idea of how it looks. But yeah, you're gonna have to wait for hours just to get a single frame. You have to figure out techniques to optimize your render times. Some cases you could try to cut down on indirect lighting, because when you have lights that hit some surfaces, those surfaces are going to be either reflecting and diffusing the light. Of course, if the surface is entirely black, it won't. But if it does, you're going to have to calculate those lights as bounce. The engine in Maya actually does that by default, but it's not very, the way it's done is not as effective as, for example, how video games do that. And the way video games do that is they kind of don't. So those indirect lighting is very, the way it's done is very resource intensive, which means a lot of time. So those renders, for example, if you look at the shot on the tower in The Fall Says the Shimmer, where you have the camera go from the back of Celestia and then rotate, that shot, I think, was probably 20 minutes per frame just to get a single picture at 4K. So I had to figure out the number of frames, how much each of those frames would take to give the good idea, and I was counting it would take about 2 weeks to get all the frames. So I couldn't do that on my own computer, because since it takes all the resources, the computer is basically useless, becomes a Facebook machine. So I had to find someone who would be able to have a computer that would be ready to do those renders, and I found someone. So that's one of the things that are tricky with Maya. There's some scenes where I could cheat, just use the built-in hardware renderer, which it doesn't handle those indirect lighting. The quality is definitely not there. But if you have some shots that are just meant to just look okay instead of looking amazing, and you don't have to worry about reflections, you can just do that. That's one of the things you realize with time, is that when you work on a project, not every shot is the best shot. So, for example, if you look at the shot where the tower, it's going to be best renderer, but there's a shot later on where you see Celestia. She's just looking at the sky and she's on the tower. The whole shot was just done with the real-time renderer, because I realized that you don't see much of it, and I could cheat it in comp, and you're more going to look at Celestion in the background. So, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of the things that I've heard from animators, and I actually I've mentioned it a couple times on my channel, but just so you know, I was actually part of a filmmaking networking group, and I've talked with former animators from Hollywood and on larger projects. I've been on a couple actual film projects myself, um, and one of the things that I always hear about animation is the time that it takes. I believe I was told the last time I heard to get a full animation of a, say, real life dragon was around 5,000 per second. So would you kind of agree that animation takes you a lot of time, especially even just regular pony animations? Because I've seen a lot of pony animations, both that you have worked on, maybe some from other animators. For example, Lullaby for a Princess, a very well fan animated work. I know that these things take a lot of time and work. So, what's kind of your viewpoint? Does it really take all this time? How do you schedule that stuff out?
Well, When I'm very lucky, I can have a minute of animation done in a month. Sometimes it's going to take 2 months. It really depends on how you work. I work more on backgrounds and character animation because I use a lot of 3D-ish rigs. Uh, it definitely depends on what you want to focus on. And yeah, it takes a lot of time. If you compare it, for example, a lot of people compare animated films with live action films. Live action films, the longest thing, obviously, you have to act, but acting works in real time, except obviously those shots in slow mo. You have to do retakes, but you also have to do retakes in animation as well. You animate a character, but you have to redo. By resculpting the way that you want the performance capture. For example, if you have a scene where you have Celestia who just stops and she reacts to something, just the timing you will have to iterate a lot on just to get the right timing. Some animators are going to be better at gauging it than others. Some animators will get actors to actually perform the scene to actually get a good idea of how the scene is going to happen. And obviously, it depends a lot of how the animators see animation, because some animators are much more into performing the scene in front of a camera and trying to replicate it, while others are more going to try to push the way that they see the animation that could happen with layouts and all. So it really depends. At the end of the day, yeah, it will take a lot of time, but the reason why it takes a lot of time, the reason why it deserves to take a lot of time, is that people will watch it a lot of time. I was looking at I think right now, I don't know exactly how long, but I think all the views of my videos, because YouTube has a tool that tells you how long the views, how long your video has been seen. Actually, I'm curious. I'm good. We'll actually look and give you the actual number. YouTube Studio. That was actually last time it was at 30, but
Well, and you've worked on a good deal of fan projects. Like Luna's Determination was a beautiful piece of animation. And one thing that I'm definitely curious about, and I'm sure a lot of viewers would definitely be curious about, is what separates the fandom animators from the actual show animators, because the show animators have done an incredible job with Milo and Brony. What separates them from us as a group of fans?
the way that basically the way that the show animators work, they have a lot more things that they have to do to get to the final result. For example, they have to iterate a lot for the designs that they have to do. They have to document a lot more. And so the result that they have, obviously, it's more like how you would treat something as a hobby and how you would treat it as a job. And I'm not going to say that the animators from the show don't enjoy their work. Is that the way that they do it is much more as a job to try to prove themselves as workers than the fan animators. So, for example, if you look at how fan animators will handle, for example, a short animation project, uh, it will much more be a personal idea that will be done by one person, and probably you will probably talk about the idea to other people, try to get some good ideas, while you have those show animators that work with a team to have someone to review. If, for example, storyboard artists, the way that they perceive a scene will go back to the animation director, basically see if it can be done, if they think that it's too much, or if they have a better idea. And that work experience is quite interesting, because I think that if you go with if you go with other people that reviewed your work, you can push other ideas. You can actually see how other people will experience the project. Uh, so you kind of have some kind of early audience, but you don't have that kind of randomness that you get from fan animators who create some crazy ideas once in a while that you just will never see in the show because it's just that crazy. It's one of those random bursts of ideas that and for example, I'm thinking in the show you have, remember there was a scene where you have the one of the mayors use a burger. No, wait, you have Twilight use a burger to wipe her face. And one of the animators from THX said he got inspired by someone actually doing that in real life. And obviously you get that, but it's more calculated. It's not as sudden as you would see from fan animators. Obviously, you don't have the strictness of the show's length. For example, every episode is exactly 22 minutes and 3 seconds. That's a limit that was hard set by the fact that it's a TV show. For fan animations, if I want to do something at 7 minutes 59 seconds, I can, and nobody's ever gonna stop me for that.
Very, very true. You know, and there's been a lot of great work by animators such as you, Minty Root, and in the fandom works by Argo Damon uh, are also, you know, we have some incredible artists in this fandom, and you are, Minty Root, you are an inspiration to us as a fandom for being able to work on actual Hollywood productions. We're running a little low on time, but I do appreciate for you giving your insight into animation, even if it is just skimming the surface. Do you have any final thoughts?
Well, I was trying to find a number. I was looking at all the minutes that were seen. So if every view of my video was added up, YouTube has a tool for that. It's quite interesting. I was looking at that, and the watch time of my channel in its entirety is 65 years and 238 days. It's almost a lifetime for people. So just the way that you see it, not only it's the view time, but also, you know, you watch a video, it's gonna stay in your mind much longer. So you see all those animations, and you realize I might have put over a year on an animation, but it made so much more in a reaction. It made so much more in the final one. So I was looking at Luna's determination. It was months and months of work that I took where I felt like was wasting my time, where I felt it was not working as enough for my projects, and I felt like it was just not good enough. And I look back and all the people, the way that they enjoyed it, the way that it impacted them, and obviously I don't see the impact as thoroughly as other creators. For example, the show creators, when they see all the fan art, it's much more direct. But I just see all the comments and all the people just felt something, and that's important for me because I think one of the important things you should do as an animator when you create an animation is to give an emotion, to make people think. For example, you've probably seen a movie in theaters and felt at the end, I feel different. I feel like I want to do something out of myself. And that's what I want to do. I want people to look at it and want to do things. I want people to think, for example, with Luna's determination, think of their impact on life and what they want to create as some kind of legacy. I want people to look at the legacy of other people, to respect it, and I want people to look at look at other people's creations and how they how they want to make a legacy out of it. And I look at that and I'm thinking, it's very important. And obviously, I don't want people to get negative lesson out of it. It might happen, but I feel it might create a kind of positive network out of it. Because there's a reason why people watch movies and they look at media. Is to inspire them to create a lot of basically to want to create, to want to be, because life wouldn't be the same without media.
And I absolutely agree. And I'm pretty sure about 30 of those watches of Luna's determination is by me alone. I'm sure I'm not the only one out there. Um, as always, this is Dratta Arcana at Dratta Talks. And if you're looking to contact me, you can do so in a variety of ways. Contact me via Dratta Arcana Gaming on Facebook or dratta.arcana@gmail.com. As always, I have now a community Discord. You can contact me definitely there. Link will be in the description. Minty Root's channel link will be in the description. Please show him some love. He is definitely one of my favorite animators out there. As always, this is Dratta Arcana with special guest.
Sponsored by Discord.
And that was Minty Root, everyone. And we'll see you guys on the next video.